Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back. It is our first interview of the day, and I'm truly pleased that we are talking with Tahir Maepa. He is with PSCU South Africa, the Secretary General of Public Service and Commercial Union of South Africa, a trade union, obviously. And we are going to be unpacking something that's confused me for a very long time. Iqbal Survey, I think that's how he pronounces his name, and the whole issue regarding the banks not wanting to do business with him and obviously his independent media organization. I couldn't quite get my head around this situation, and I was very pleased when my producer Nasri Naidu decided to do the story this morning and with a trade union. And I think this is truly going to unpack this situation and give us clear insight into why this has been going on. And as I was reading my notes, one thing that popped into my mind was that I think this has to do with political interference. I may be wrong, but let's see what Tahir Maepa has to say about this. Now, yesterday, COSATU spokesperson Sizwe Pamla said that the South African banks were taking advantage of the state's weaknesses by behaving as a law unto themselves and arbitrarily terminating their clients' bank accounts. So what on earth is going on here, and why was Iqbal Survey and his business venture, independent media, targeted? This has been going on for a long time, possibly almost a year, and I kind of wonder, how did that impact on his business? Tahir Maepa, assalamu alaikum, welcome to the program.
Walaikum salam. Thanks for having me, Sister Julie.
Lovely to have you on the show. And of course, I had a very big opening statement suggesting the confusion around this issue, also suggesting perhaps there's been political interference. Is it because Iqbal Survey and independent media, I think that's what they're called, were possibly too vociferous about their condemnation of government and government shenanigans? What is going on here? And as far as you are concerned, also as a trade unionist yourself, is this a big win for independent businesses in South Africa?
Yes, Sister Julie, your confusion, I think, emanates from the dream deferred that we all had, that we are in a new South Africa, South Africa that is loving, South Africa that embraces everybody and all that. And because of we really want that, we are people of the heart. We want to continue with life, and we want to say that let bygones by bygones and all those kinds of things. But sadly, Sister Julie, bygones are not gone. The systematic repressive stranglehold from the previous apartheid machinery is still in existence, and it's working hard to retain what they used to have. What we are seeing here is that before 1994, having a bank account was a luxury for Black people. And even when you had a bank account, you have to account for every little cent that you have in the bank account, where you get it from, and all that. Now, the advent of the new democracy saw the likes of Iqbal Savi and many other Black business people starting to venture into what I would say it's a wide dominance. And one of those is media. We all know, Sister Julie, media is a very, very powerful tool. I've never seen in history where there is a change of guard without the media being involved. So the media sort of makes a particular narrative in order to arrive at a particular point of view. Now, having to have media under the hands of people of color, Black people, it has angered a lot of people. When independent media was put to sale, a number of big media houses wanted to buy it. And they tried to have access of it because they wanted the monopoly of the big media houses. Unfortunately for them, the likes of Iqbal Sevi were able to buy independent media, and it became an independent media house that speaks and deals with issues. Well, over time, it was okay because we were just in this uh, jolly ride of a new democracy and all those kinds of things. But our current democratic government, which is former liberators, when they get accused of things and negative things are thrown out in the public by the likes of independent media, they didn't like it. And the banks were used as a political tool to try and take away the independent media. This was a clear terrorist attack on Iqbal Seif, if I may put it like that. So what they did is that they closed his bank accounts, and we all know that nobody can run a business without a bank account. The moment your banks are closed, your doors are also closing. I don't know how Iqbal Seif did it up to so far, and he managed to survive this long, because most of their bank accounts have been closed for over a year now, and he's been fighting
That's
this
right.
for
That's
quite
right.
some time. Now, what the banks did, they relied on a case by a guy called Bredenkam. This chap, the Constitutional Court, in its wisdom, found that the banks have every right to terminate the bank accounts of their clients if they feel that they don't want to make business with that particular individual. But the context, Sister Julie, was different. In this case, why did they close the Sekunjalo group bank accounts? They say that there was negative publicity against Iqbal Sevi and his businesses. And who was making the negative publicity? The competitors, the Naspers of this world and all that, and News 24 and all that. These are
So
Iqbal Sevi's competitors.
let me come in here, Tahir. You get criminals, hardcore criminals that derive their funds from criminality. They hold
Yes.
bank accounts. There's nothing
Wow.
said against them. Their accounts are not closed. That is business for the banks. So this does
Yes.
smack of clear, outright politicking, and also the grip that the previous apartheid regime or people that still are in power or hold power as far as the white minority are concerned, they still wanting to obviously to rule. They have the money, they have the clout to continue
Yes.
ruling. And then you also need to ask the question, are they the guys bankrolling some of our political parties?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, the only reason why our president doesn't want his bank accounts to be out in the public, who funded him, is because he was funded by the same banks. And you must also understand that some of these businesses and media houses, they also have shares in some of these banks. So it's the same boys club that is running the show here. But what also is very interesting, Sister Julie, is the fact that you have the likes of Steinhoff. These are criminals. There's tribunals in all over the world against Steinhoff for the criminality that is out in the open. Their banks have never been touched. Hewlett and Packard, they were found guilty of criminality. Their bank accounts were never closed down. There are politicians who are accused of corruption that are cited during the Zondo Commission. All their bank accounts are still open. But ordinary individuals like me and yourself, the bank can just wake up in the morning and say, Tahir, we heard that you're in Salam Media criticizing us. We don't want to make business with you. And I'm
You
done.
and I, you and I are in trouble going forward.
That is
Hey, you know what? I'm just an ordinary working class girl. So if they shut down my bank account, so be it. Um, this is a big win for Sekunjalo and Iqbal's survey, so to speak. Can he take? Well, I don't know if he's going to have the energy to follow through. But could he sue these banks for loss of earnings over the past year? And if he goes that route, obviously the doors of those banks will then be permanently shut on him.
If I can get hold of this gentleman, that's exactly what I'm going to advise him, because I think most of his businesses suffered financial ruin because of this negativity. Because who wants to make a business with a person who's always in the media with negative narrative that not once he has been proven? It's just allegations against him. And I'm not here to stand in support or to try and defend Iqbal Seif. I think he's a billionaire. He can defend himself. I'm poor. I'm just like you, where I'm just a working class individual. But justice in this case needs to be fought for, irrespective of who's affected. And this win by Sekunjalo is not a win for Iqbal Seif and his group of companies. It's a win for every South African who suffered in the hands of these banks. And that is why we also support this class action by the banks, by Godrej Gadi, to get these banks to be accountable for all the losses and the suffering that we have suffered. But they also need to pay a price for their role during apartheid, because most of these banks were part of the machinery that suppressed us, that made our lives very difficult during apartheid. And to date, they haven't paid for their sins. And it's about time that they need to pay.
Let's go back to Sekunjalo. And you make a very valid point there that the banks haven't made any reparation as far as victims of apartheid is concerned. That also brings another question to mind, and that is, obviously we know that there was a story or stories revealed post-apartheid of how we were classified, when we open up banking accounts as Indians, coloreds, Africans, etc. We were charged higher interest rates. We were the working class and the poor, undertrodden people of South Africa, and yet we were overcharged compared to our white, rich counterparts. That is how sick the system is. This is how the system operated. Are you, as a trade union, have you looked into that, and are you aware of whether that imbalance has been corrected up to now? And if not, what sort of reparation can we hope to get? So that's also a story, and perhaps you can respond in a minute or two to that. The other question to ask as well, Tahir, is how come none of the political parties said a thing about the shutdown of the banking account of Sekunjalo? Surely somebody somewhere should have spoken up in his favor.
Yes, Sister Julie, whilst your wound is still open, let me pour salt. Unfortunately, the racial profiling in the banks is still happening even today. It hasn't stopped. Even today, we are still classified through our algorithms now. When you approach a bank for a loan, for a car financing or a housing loan, you as a black person, you are not going to get the same interest rate as a white person. Forget it, not in this country. And this
So
is
what are we doing about it? Tahir, you as a trade unionist, here is your next big project. Why don't you look into this? Why don't you expose this big time and let them correct all those ills of the past?
We've already started last year already. That is why there's a class action against the banks. All that we want South Africans who have suffered in the hands of these bloody criminals to come forward with their cases so that we take these banks to the cleaners. Because if we are not going to do it, this government is not going to change our financial institutions, because of they are funded by them. They launder money through the same banks, these politicians, and they are allowed to do all these criminalities. So how would they stand up and say anything against the banks? They will never say it, because of the banks know every transaction that they've made.
Absolutely.
So this is organized crime that we are dealing with. But we as a society, we must accept and say to ourselves, it is incumbent on us to take this struggle forward. Forget about politicians. Forget about the so-called leaders. These people are worthless. They don't worth a cent of what they are getting. And I was so glad yesterday when I saw COSATU kicking out Gwedeman Tache from their conference, because the workers are waking up to reality. Something that I told them 5 years ago, that COSATU, if you are not careful, you are going to be remembered in history as part of an institution that destroyed this country. It's about time that we take this thing into our hands.
Okay, we have so much more to unpack on this issue. Let's go for a short ad break. We'll be back with you in a minute or two.
There's no smell that takes me back to the comfort of my childhood than the smell of black seed oil being applied by my nanny. Now I'm using tib black seed in my own home to soothe sniffles and coughs, to help with digestion and immunity, and of course, as part of my beauty routine. After all these years, I've come to appreciate the wisdom in finding comfort and shifa in trusted treatments like tib black seed. You can find tib black seed at all leading pharmacies or find out more at blackseed.co.za.
Devastating floods in Pakistan have washed away villages, claimed the lives of more than 1,000 people, damaged nearly 1 million homes, and left over 33 million people in desperate need of help. As the catastrophe unfolds, Islamic Relief is on the ground, reaching people with life-saving aid. Our team are working tirelessly to deliver food and shelter. Your support is urgently needed now to help save more lives. Donate now to Islamic Relief.
Ah, the kitchen, the heart of the home, where memories are made and celebrated. Our go-to place for those freshly stacked pancakes early in the morning or for that late-night snack munchies. We are in there together, cooking, eating, and celebrating life together. Let's keep the kitchen a place that is shared by everyone, where we build stronger bonds and grow together. Sunfoil, now we cooking. Visit nowwecooking.co.za for recipes that everyone can help make.
Breaking stereotypes, moving boundaries, joining hands. Salam Media. Humanity sets the agenda.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back. It is exactly 8:26 a.m. I am talking to trade unionist Tahir Maepa. He is actually the Secretary General of Public Service and Commercial Union of South Africa. We obviously, as you've been following the interview, not only Tahir's trade union, but all trade unions, COSATU included, have welcomed the Competition Tribunal's decision in the Sekunjalo versus banks case. And it's a big win as far as businesses are concerned. Tahir, the big question as well is South African Revenue Services. What's their role in all of this? Because they connect the dots, they follow the money trail, do they not? And are they outside of this this discussion, or do you think that they are also perhaps complicit in some way or the other? Because SARS is an entity of the South African government. They collect revenues from you and I and the rest of South Africa.
No, absolutely. Sister Julie, this is the whole dilemma that we find ourselves in as a country. You have all these institutions, Financial Services Board, you have SARS, you have National Treasury, you have all these institutions that are supposed to make sure that they keep the tab on the behaviors of the financial institutions. But you see, Sister Julie, the financial institutions are so powerful. They influence even who gets appointed in some of these institutions. So we were up in arms when the Gupta.
Okay,
sorry?
Yeah. Sorry, just repeat. I lost you there. The picture froze. Can you just repeat from "we were up in arms" and carry on?
I'm saying we were up in arms when it was revealed that the Guptas were influential in appointment of the minister of this department and the DG of this department. And we think that it's only happening within the government apparatus. It's happening in the private sector as well, because these banking institutions and financial institutions, they have an interest on the outcomes of these regulatory bodies. So they make sure that they've got their people who are in those particular positions. So SARS, despite the fact that, for instance, in the past, there was an issue of the manipulation of the rand, and banks were complicit in that. Did you hear anything happening to the banks? No. It will never happen, despite the fact that South Africa as a country lost billions of rands during that particular process. And there's many other criminal activities that the banks are doing that are not they are not followed up. That is why we need strong, independent media with the capacity to investigate and reveal some of these criminalities, so that the people out here, they are able to know. Ordinary people out there, this is just way above them. All that they care about is that there must be food on the table and all that, but they don't realize the reason why bread the other day was 10 rand and today is 20 rand is because of these kinds of things. And if these kinds of things are not dealt with, are not addressed, unfortunately, ordinary people like me and you are going to pay the bill to make sure that these guys continue to be rich and to make profits out of our misery and our suffering.
Let's get then back to Sekunjalo, a big win for them and media as a whole, right across the board, whatever type of platform you're utilizing to communicate with the masses. It's going to now be hopefully business as usual for Iqbal Survey and Sekunjalo, who are, he's in direct competition with all the mainstream media, I should imagine print media.
Yes.
Tahir, you're breaking up there. In fact, your picture has just frozen. Let's just try and see if we can refresh. I didn't hear that at all. The picture froze. Can you please repeat that? You are back. Thank you.
Okay, yes, I'm saying he's in competition with the bigger groups like Naspers. I mean, Naspers, we know it's quite big, and we know the history of Naspers as far as we are concerned. And these companies like Naspers and their directors are very close buddies of our president. So it's a buddy system. You scratch my back, I scratch your back, and life goes on at our expense. So for them, it is a victory for now. I don't think this is over. This is far from over, because this victory, I don't believe the banks will accept it. They will never stomach the fact that they lost a battle against an individual. So they are going to fight this thing all the way. We may see this thing going back all the way to the Constitutional Court. So it's still a hard road ahead. But what is important, we need to get our voices to be heard. We need to throw our voices in the head and make sure that we also support what is right. And where Iqbal or any other person is wrong, we must also call them out, because it's all about our future and the future of our country. And without the media, Sister Julie, we are doomed, because majority of the information that we consume emanates from the media, rubbish or good. It emanates from the media. But if there's no competition, you will not be able to know what you are consuming, because people believe what they read and what they see and hear from the radios and so forth.
So as far as you concerned, Sekunjalo's fight is not over yet. Perhaps this is just the beginning of a very long road ahead for Iqbal Survey and the Sekunjalo group. You, as a trade unionist, what would your advice be to him? Because obviously he is suffering losses. His business, he can't go ahead and, it's not business as usual because his bank accounts are closed. What's the best piece of advice you can give to him? Because you are suggesting there's a long road ahead for him.
What if I were to see him? I would tell him that he must really stand on this path. He mustn't turn back. It's too late anyway for him to turn around and try and get a political or a settlement with his detractors. This is a do or die kind of a situation for him. However, I want to assure him he's not alone. We, the trade unions and the civil society, who are conscious enough to know what is happening in this country, we are behind him. And that is why we are joining this class action against the bank in order to support his plight. And we are happy that despite all these challenges that he has faced, he hasn't retrenched any of his employees. He kept them under very difficult circumstances. And we're talking about thousands of families that benefit from the group. So once that group was shut down, thousands of families were going to suffer. And for that, may God bless him and may God give him strength. But him and his family and his group, he must just know that he's not alone. We are going to support him and we are going to mobilize society against these criminals.
Inshallah, what I will try and do here is see if we can try and secure an interview with Iqbal himself and get his side of the story as well. But thank you indeed for your overview on this matter. Just very quickly, you're talking about a class action against the banks. What's that all about? Is it in support of allowing Sekunjalo to do business with the banks again? Or is it the other matter that I raised earlier on with you regarding the racial profiling and the interest rates that we as Black people are being subjected to?
Yes, it's not related to the matter of Iqbal Savi. It's a societal issue. The suffering of Black people over the years in the hands of these banks, where we are racially profiled and we are made to pay high interest rates, and our people losing their houses, and a house that is worth 400, the bank, and they owe the bank 10,000. They take that house and sell it for 300,000. These are very shrewd criminal people. They have no heart at all, and especially for us Black people. So it's about time that we need to make sure that the future is at least brighter for the next generation. But we need to suffer and do the fighting today, just like the 1976 young people who stood up against apartheid. This is our turn. Let's make sure that the next generation is better off than we are.
Tahir Maepa, it's been very sobering talking with you this morning. Alhamdulillah. Please carry on the fight for the rights of the people. We will be talking with you again sometime soon, inshallah. Very especially to find out the progress you're making with this class action against the bank. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be with you. Keep up the great work and salamu alaikum. Keep us in your du'as, inshallah.
Same for you. Salamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. That was Brother Tahir Maepa, Secretary General of Public Service and Commercial Union of South Africa, talking about the Competition Tribunal's decision in the Sekunjalo versus Bank case. It is exactly 8:37 a.m. In a minute or two, we will be joined by political analyst Bishop Clyde Ramalane. And we're going to be looking at the step-aside rule being unfair and unjust, according to Dr. Dlamini Zuma.